Descent into Darkness, Season 2, A Call of Cthulhu campaign. Welcome back to Deathwatch's Call of Cthulhu campaign, Descent into Darkness, Season 2. This is episode 23, and I am Travis. I will be your keeper today. Our in-universe time puts us on June the 17th at approximately 12 noon, although not exactly. And last time we left our investigators, two of them, Mr. Monroe and Mr. Whitmire, were in a strange shared dream experience while Dr. Andrews had gone off to meet with Betty Williams, the girlfriend of Murrow Beckett. Now, is there anything else we should remember before we get this one started?
We did not get eaten in the forest.
That's true, you made it out. All right, before we get back into it, let's just get a investigator introduction from each of our players.
Yes, well, I'm Wallace Andrews, MD, played by Brandon Turner.
So what's Dr. Andrews, what's in his head?
Can't remember.
Is he still reading Gargantuan Women from Mars?
Yeah, no, he's probably finished that, but since it's been more than a single day since last time we played, I've forgotten all previous activities. But just looking over my journal, I can see that on the way to meet with Betty, he'll be preoccupied by the wonderful story he was told by Mr. Clark about how a large Italian man ate the flesh off of his arm.
Not only ate it, but made succulent sounds.
Made comments about it. Apparently it tasted good. So I'll be thinking about that for a while, I think.
Magnifique.
Yeah, magnifique. Yeah, it's pretty weird to eat people.
I'll say.
All right, I'm playing Lance Monroe. This is Justin. I am currently exploring with wonder a dream realm that is open to nearly infinite possibilities as far as Lance is concerned. He is nearly completely forgotten about the Dooley murder and needs occasionally to be brought back in mind.
Yeah, well, that probably would happen in real life, I think.
Yeah.
If you were propelled into some weird dream experience.
But right now he is extremely excited, a little bit cautious, and entirely enthusiastic in continuing forward in the dream.
And I'm John playing James Whitmire, who's also in a shared dream experience. And he's pretty excited that this time he may make it to the town before he wakes up, if he's quick enough.
Yeah, you better sprint across that field. Yeah, so I had said that the very first thing we would do is return to the dream, but I lied. We're actually going to check in with Dr. Andrews before we get back to you two. So, Dr. Andrews, you had left with Mr. Monroe. You had left visiting the lawyer James Clark as he was recovering from his cannibal attack. And, you know, Mr. Monroe had gone on to visit with the owner of an occult shop named Lamar, and you had plans to meet Betty Williams for lunch. So that's where we'll pick up right now. Did you want to meet at the meeting places of all meeting places? The O'Lafferty's Cafe?
Yeah. Yeah. Where else?
That guy, he probably just runs it by himself, so he gets breaks when he doesn't have customers, but you guys go there so often. He starts lighting up a cigarette, and then he stubs it out and goes back inside. It's like, what will it be today? Yes, but you are sat with Betty Williams, very young, very attractive woman, a student at Radcliffe College for Women, and she has a fixed, concerned expression on her face as she is quite concerned about her missing boyfriend. But in any case, she's agreed to speak to you today, and you can quiz her on the various members of Porcellian. And she hasn't ordered anything but tea at the moment.
Ms. Williams, please order some food. You need to eat. I'm a doctor. I know these things.
You're quite right, but I found my appetite has been diminished of late.
Ah, yes, I can understand that. Quite distraught, are you, about your missing boyfriend?
Yes.
Well, you're young, you're attractive, there'll be others. Anyway, let's talk about the other members of the Porcellian Finals Club, shall we?
We shall, although I don't know them too well, but what is it you wanted to know?
Well, I don't remember, but any important information will be fine.
It's up to me to determine what is important to tell you when I don't know what you might think is important.
I trust you.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't remember. I had questions for him, and now I don't remember what they were.
Well, she could kind of just start going on about the ones that she's met, her boyfriend's circle, because, she doesn't know all of the Porcellian members, but the close circle that he hangs out with. So she begins to discuss, say William Murrow Jr. She describes him as quiet, but he does give me a unsettling vibe, I don't know if it's just because he's quiet or he just has an odd look about him, kind of like he appears respectful, but that's a facade. And I had heard he was failing some of his classes, and in particular, he supposedly had a embarrassing and public argument with one of his professors.
Do you remember this professor's name?
I'm afraid I don't. We don't share any of the same professors with the men who attend Harvard. Wallace Bowers, he's the nicest of the bunch, seems a little impressionable, like he's just hanging on the heels of the other boys. Wade Hoffman, he's the joker of the group. He once replaced all the candy apples we serve at Thanksgiving with candied onions. Also, he coated the left foot of the John Harvard statue with skunk musk. This is particularly bad because people rub the left foot for good luck. Cole Bishop is a freshman, and he's just Murrow's shadow as far as I could tell. But they all seem to share an interest in the occult. I wouldn't say this is standard for all of the Porcellian members. Their big reputation is drinking and, meals, their roast pig that they put on from every now and then pranks on people around the campus. But my boyfriend and his friends, they all had this interest in the occult. I remember one particular time they had gone off to do something, but I think it left my boyfriend shaken because he just wouldn't describe what exactly had been done. And oftentimes I'd be hanging out with them, and they would, rather arbitrarily it seems, decide that this was the business of Porcellian only, and they would leave me and go on to do whatever it is that they do.
Do you remember this time when your boyfriend seemed shaken? They wouldn't give you any details, but do you remember where they went?
Yeah, the old Church of Contemplation grounds. It must have been last year, I think.
I see.
I thought that Murrow Beckett was going to quit the Porcellian Club after whatever that event was, but that ended up not being the case. Now, Dr. Andrews, I need your help on a matter. As I said, I wish to discover my boyfriend's location and find him, and I get the sense that you know something that could help me with that.
Oh, well, so I'll try to do a psychology to see if she could handle the truth.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Let's see if I can find it. Ooh, I got a success.
Well, you think that she could. However, you're not entirely certain that you can, as you have described your character kind of defaults to this rational framework when it gets too close to the truth. So
yeah.
You're not entirely certain what the truth is, but you think she can. She does seem to have a good head on her shoulders, and, perhaps the concern for a loved one would be a good buffer against something that would drive her into madness.
Well, I'll chance it. And so, Miss Williams, I should tell you that this shouldn't be repeated to anyone, but these rituals and these, activities that this Porcellium Finals Club engage in by many are thought to just be harmless fun, maybe complete nonsense. But I'm here to tell you that there is more to it than that, and that it is quite dangerous. And I wouldn't be able to explain or describe the workings of it, but it is very clear that this ritual that they performed at the Church of Contemplation had some serious consequences. In one case, a young boy is in the Danvers mental asylum. I can't remember.
Yeah, Wallace Bowers, I heard.
Wallace Bowers is there. And in another case, your boyfriend has gone missing. And the end result, of course, was that a man was killed. A man was killed, and both Wallace Bowers and your boyfriend have at points taken credit for having caused his death.
Well, I think Beckett's not in the right frame of mind. He raves most times when I talk to him. The Beckett I know could not have ordered anybody's killing.
Well, I believe you, because his personality seems to change. Same with Wallace Bowers, when they oscillate between claiming responsibility and placing the responsibility on others. But the point is that there have been some consequences of these activities they've undertaken, which is why I need all the information that I can get from you. Because I think your boyfriend has been taken to an alternate dimension.
Well,
there's a short lead up to a big drop.
Well, that seems very difficult to grasp, but how would I get to such a place?
There's a ritual to call the Dark Hunter?
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you ever heard them mention anything like that? A Dark Hunter?
No, I'm afraid not.
Well, I have myself been attacked by one, and I'll show her my arm, which is the next day, right?
Yeah.
So we'll have to do the hit point thing. But anyway, I'll show her my arm, and I'll explain that encounter.
Okay.
And I guess just for effect, I'll tell her about the drawing that Charlie did of the black hole or whatever that was.
Yeah. She was there for some of that, although unconscious.
Yeah.
After you,
right? Yeah.
Pushed her into the thing, and she's
Yeah.
I think if I hadn't been there, if you had told me that, I wouldn't know what to think. But I saw that thing, and so now it seems as though the rules have changed. My father went missing in France. Presumed dead. And I had this strange thing that happened to me where, because we didn't have a proper funeral where we buried an empty casket, but I always had this idea in my head that, because we didn't put a body in the ground, that my father must be somewhere. And if I knew how to go to that place and find him, then I could. And that troubled me for a long time, much longer than had we had a corpse to put in the ground. And so I tell you this so you understand what it is doing to my mind to know that my boyfriend is somewhere, and yet I seem unable to do anything about it. This isn't like death or something I can easily move on from. If you had somebody you loved in your life and you had some way to get back to them, what extent would you go to, Doctor?
Well, it's difficult to say what extent I would go to, but I will say I understand your feelings on the matter. Unfortunately, I've given all the answers I have. Like, I know this ritual summons that creature. I don't know if that ritual or another like it would allow us to cross over to that dimension, or if we have to go through the door he opens up when he arrives and risk attack. These are all things that I don't know. I still myself have a hard time believing, even though I've seen it with my own eyes.
Well, there's something else. I spoke to Beckett just last night over the radio, and he was quite mad, but he was raving about groups of vagrants appearing where he is, and this strange toad-like creature eating these groups of vagrants.
Hmm.
And this seems to be different than what has occurred in previous weeks and previous communications. These groups come in and they're eaten one at a time. And he described how one tried to break free and escape, but it was very difficult to figure out exactly what he's going for. But it sounded like there were guards around this toad-like creature, and they were made of some black, oily substance.
Hmm.
And it grabbed him. He couldn't escape. But I don't know. It seems like it's coming to a head. He seems in fear of his life. I don't know why he has not already been fed to this god.
Now, this toad-like creature, like I was there for some of the conversations Monroe was having with Mueller.
Yeah.
It's like what's this thing's name?
Zagua.
Zagua. Yeah.
Yeah, and you had, or and B. Eddie had discussed it a little bit before you destroyed his soul fetter. But it wasn't very detailed. But you have, in the course of this narrative, understood that Beckett has seen characters that very closely fit the description of Consortium members of Mr. Blackman that seem to be down in wherever this subterranean space he's being held.
Yeah.
Which seems to be a shrine or a dwelling place for Zagua.
Right.
And he had mentioned that a professor that he was taken with was fed to Zagua.
Yeah, that's right, the professor. Did we know this professor's name?
Ronan Jarvis.
Ronan Jarvis.
You learned that from Detective Nichols.
Yeah.
Well, let's pause here for a moment, and you can think it over. You guys will eat in silence for a few minutes, and then we'll pop over to the dream state that Mr. Monroe and Mr. Whitmire share. And so as you guys leave the woods, you see fertile fields rolling out beyond towards a blue river. You see smoke rising from chimneys of scattered cottages, and hedges and roads are evident. You know, this whole area is well ordered and cultivated. And you can see the figure of a human. It just looks like a regular human from this distance, like out in a field doing field work.
Okay.
And
doing
we'll open
human things.
Human things, yeah.
Well, I believe that last time I'd left off with me telling Lance that I've never made it farther than this. Usually once I start to try and cross this field, I wake up, so we're going to have to run and hope that we make it. And with that, I'll start running.
Are you going to sprint after him, Mr. Monroe?
I'll make a shambling poor attempt at it because I'm rather less athletic than he is. So yeah, just kind of a mildly portly man huffing and puffing his way behind him.
Like a locomotive.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, you guys sprint across this field down towards the nearest cottage, which is where you saw this man at. And as you approach, you can see the architecture. The man's dress is sort of reminiscent of medieval Europe in a way.
Okay.
You don't see that he has any modern tools out there in his field. These are all older types of farming tools. But you guys pause for a moment because you see a big creature that it looks like an elephant in its general outline, although it's smaller and it has, pale green skin. And it does have a trunk just like an elephant would, but it appears to be acting as kind of a beast of burden in this case. And it has these dark liquid eyes. When the farmer stops and raises his hand at the two of you, it sort of looks at and regards you as well. But yeah, you guys have halted at this hedgerow that borders his field.
Okay.
What do you want to do?
So I'll wait for Lance to catch up. In the meantime, I'll raise my hand back to the guy in greeting and ask him, what town is this?
He says, hello there. Well, you're on the outskirts of Near. You can see it down yonder. And he points down where you see this ribbon of blue water in the center of this valley. And you see a cluster of houses that is right next to it and a bridge. And that's what he pointed to when he said Near.
And what was the name of the town from that letter?
Ulthar.
Ulthar. Okay. I'll wait for Monroe to catch up, and then I'll ask that question if he's familiar with that town, Ulthar.
Yeah, you just go on down to the village and then cross the bridge, and it's only a short distance beyond the bridge to Ulthar. Although I've just finished up my breakfast meal, I still have some left if you'd like to. Gruel and mushrooms. Well, come on inside for a spell.
I'll hold up a piece of that bread and say that we appreciate the offer, friend. As we have we brought our own, and we really have some pressing business that we need to address in Ulthar. As maybe on the way back, though, if you're still in the offering mood.
Oh, okay. I see. Well, you gentlemen have a good day.
I just created us an enemy in this dream world.
Yeah, so he returns to his field duties, and you can see this path leads on into a cluster of buildings, and then you see that bridge as you guys travel on. It's just a great stone bridge that goes across the river, and you begin to see other people and other normal like animals, like dogs and whatnot. But no alien looking people. They all just appear human and slightly curious and very friendly. They wave, give you greetings as you guys pass through.
Flyers to each of them. Just kidding.
So is there anything that stands out here other than the dress and maybe the buildings themselves that sets it apart from something that we would see in the waking world?
Well, it just seems like a very good recreation of a feudal, medieval village, although you would expect more poverty and depression around that if that were truly what it was. These people appear to be prosperous and happy. And aside from the weird elephant-like creature, which you see again, nothing else really strikes you as odd, except for the colors are much more vibrant. As you get down to the edge of this river, it's brilliantly blue, but you can see through it. It's translucent, and you see like a multitude of fish swimming up and downstream. And then, of course, there's this bridge, which has these great sort of hexagonal stones from which it's constructed. And you can both give me a power roll as you approach it.
A bridge that requires a power roll.
Where's
Nice. Hard success.
Yeah, so so these hexagonal stones, like I said, they're huge. They're maybe 6 feet across at their widest points. And you both hear a faint scratching noise that seems to be coming from inside each of these stones as you begin to travel across it.
The farmers said that the town that was named on that letter is just a short ways after this bridge.
Yeah, so you can see that there are 7 hills in the distance, and you catch a glimmer from the sunlight, something reflecting off these hills, and you can pick out the faint shape of structures in the distance.
Mr. Monroe, do you think that there's something inside of these hexagonal pillars that's supposed to stop like the woodland creatures, or do you think it'll stop us?
I don't know, but I believe that we must continue forward without being distracted in any way.
Be on your guard. I'll start striding across that bridge.
And as we walk, I'll be talking about the story that I'd read about the man who made it to the dream realm and passed through, 7 different areas of the world, where each one he had to answer I believe the phrase was answer a question that was never asked or something like that.
Okay. Yeah.
And say that if we want to reach our destination, then we must follow that path and that process.
Because that's going to start me on
he had been
that.
Steadfast.
How do you answer a question that's never been asked?
I suppose we shall have to find out if we are to reach our destination.
I'm going to shout out, green, Wait for something to happen.
Nothing happens except you hear the faint scratching, although by this time you guys are on the far side of the stone bridge.
I don't know if that was the answer or not, but nothing happened yet.
Well, let's continue forward and see what challenges await us.
So yeah, these 7 hills in the distance are probably about an hour journey away on foot, and that big mountain looms off to your left as you guys are traveling to that towards Ulthar, and eventually that road, which was just packed dirt, becomes cobblestone, and you guys enter what would be like the suburbs of this area, and that's a mix of small cottages and neatly fenced farms. But eventually you come upon the town itself, which is also on the banks of this river as it's looped around now. The houses here have peaked roofs and overhanging second stories, and once you get into the city proper, there are a multitude of cats, and while you get friendly greetings, from the people, they keep their distance, but the cats aren't like that at all. They immediately mob you guys, and they're rubbing themselves along your legs and meowing at you curiously.
17?
17? No. One of the cats cocks its head at you and gives 42. An inquisitive meow.
Do you think I'll turn to Monroe and say, do you think it's fish?
Well, I think we should continue forward until something stops us from moving forward any farther, and then find a way to overcome it. That's the best answer I can give. If these cats try to stop us, then we'll have to find a way past them. Otherwise, I suggest we just ignore them and continue forward.
I'll pat that scatter gun and say, yeah, we'll find a way.
Though I will suggest that violence is likely not the correct answer in this capacity.
Maybe that is the answer to the unasked question. Is a full unprovoked violent response.
Yeah, so the city is structured in a way that it seems to the main road that you're on leads its way to the highest hill in the city, in which you can see a rather large temple atop its peak, and that seems to be the focus of the city. Now, nobody challenges you, and some people don't even look your way because you pick out, at least from your eyes, what look like people from other places. They're darker skinned, or their clothes are of a different fashion from the predominant style. So it seems that this city, Ulthar, is used to visitors from afar, although perhaps they do not know how far you have traveled from. But like any city, they're happy to leave you to your own business as you guys traverse, apparently, towards this temple.
Are they, I imagine there's normal business transactions happening between the townsfolk and merchants?
Yes.
What are they using for money, or what are they exchanging for the goods?
They're using a coin. When you look over the shoulder of a person who's in the act of buying a strange piece of fruit that's orange in color, but it has, like some sort of spiny exterior, he gives a coin with a figure on it that's emanating brilliant light on one side. You don't see the opposite side.
I'm tempted to try and steal one of those, a coin, because I'm wondering if I can make something come back with me to the waking world.
I see.
So what would that be, like a stealth or sleight of hand?
Either would work. I'd say sleight of hand's probably the better of the two. So if you go with stealth, we'll make it a hard stealth roll.
Okay. I'll keep that in my back pocket there. The urge won't overtake me to the point where I'm going to follow through on it just yet.
Yeah, so as you guys are kind of caught in the stream of these shoppers and you're moving forward towards the temple, you can see now you get like petitioners, people going up to this temple, and they're garbed in robes, and they have the air about them of, like on their way to worship or perhaps make some offering. And you can now make out on the exterior of this temple, there seems to be a depiction of Nosht, one of the two sages that greeted you upon your entry here. And some people seem to be bowing before this image, which is just a big carved into the stone impression of the man's face. And there seems to be smoke coming from the left ear of Nosht's head, while people in a line are putting offerings in the right ear. And then around the sides of this structure, there are two stairwells that lead up into the temple proper.
Should we offer something to him?
Well, what kind of offerings are they placing in there?
You can see it seems to be like bits of their harvest.
Okay.
So whatever kind of, some you recognize, like wheat or corn, and then others are strange.
And are the people that make the offerings then going into the temple, or do people kind of bypass that go into the temple?
Some do go into the temple. Some don't even make an offering before they go into the temple, and then some turn back to the town.
Okay.
But he does seem to be also receiving prayers, though they're not vocal. It's just you recognize the act of praying when it happens.
Yeah.
As far as guards go, there's nobody blocking entry into the temple, although there are two men standing around with spears and mail shirts.
And people are coming out of the temple too, I suppose. And so, okay.
You got the right frame of mind, though, Mr. Monroe.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
This is some sort of weird line of people offering them up for sacrifice.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that they weren't like going in and then, just like a river of blood coming out somewhere else. So I guess we could ask one of the petitioners about the temple.
Okay.
Suppose that would be the best way of us gaining information about it rather than just assuming or taking a guess.
Okay, so you go ahead, John.
Did you share that letter with me last time, or is it in the list of documents that we can pull up?
Yeah, I think it's in the list. I thought I saw it.
Well, let's...
I think I found it.
No, the Enchanted Wood, yeah.
Let's switch back over to Dr. Andrews, and we'll give you guys a moment to take it all in. So you've had a moment of silence to eat your food and have something to drink. And finally she breaks that silence and she says, yes, I am not appearing before you as a damsel in distress needing your help. I just need to know some way to get access to Beckett. And it seems that you don't have that, Dr. Andrews. And I don't hold that against you. This is all very strange, but perhaps we can just make some commitment to help each other if we come across some way to get to him, or, God, I don't even know.
Well, as a matter of fact, it's true that I don't have the answers. I might know those who do, and if their information can be put with mine, perhaps we can find an answer to this. And so give me some time to speak with my friends and see if we can find some way to reach that place. But you must know that it seems extremely unlikely that any attempted rescue would end in failure, certain death. I mean, just this Dark Hunter, which it now appears there must be more than one of, required, shotgun blast from a 12 gauge or whatever, 12 gauge shotgun.
Well,
and I'm not even sure that killed it, or if maybe it simply is immune to such effects and regenerated. That's to say nothing of enormous frogs eating people. And
well, I have difficulty imagining my life is like bereft of Beckett. We had both promised to marry after our studies were complete. And in this, you sort of recognize an age disparity between the two of you, where you sort of recognize that young love yearning, but you're on the other side of a lot of grief and more life. So there's really nothing that can be done to talk her out of it.
Yeah, I wouldn't try. Yes, but
so it seems that to me the risk is worth it, and that's why I'm not appealing to you to do something on my behalf, but to give me the means to do it on my own.
Well, let me see what answers I can find.
Well, thank you.
But
Dr.
until
Andrews.
then, I need more information from you. Namely, if you can find out the name of the professor that William Murrow Jr. had the argument with.
Yeah, I can do that.
What was the other questions we wanted? I can't remember. Let's see.
I know we had some questions about one of their fathers. It's one of something Jr.
Yeah, William Murrow Jr.
Yeah.
And his father would be the crime lord.
Yeah.
An acquaintance of the crime lord. His godfather is.
Yeah.
And then his father was a
lord.
member of the Church of Contemplation.
Right.
That had been shut down. Although personally, I'm convinced that William Murrow Jr. is actually his father, just having been reduced in age through one of the rituals.
Oh, yeah. So. Yeah, that makes sense. Well, I mean, it doesn't, but but it does.
But I might be getting paranoid from playing this game too much.
So are you kind of thinking out loud about William Murrow Jr. here and sort of laying out these connections?
Yeah.
Well, she says...
because we had the Bowers, when Dr. Call was having the conversation with him, Bowers had said Murrow, but we didn't know if he was talking about
Beckett or Murrow
her
Jr.
boyfriend or Murrow Jr.
Well, I don't have a favorable opinion of him. As I said, he's quiet, but there's something unsettling about him. And I've caught him, staring at me, which is not entirely unusual, but there was something that left me unsettled by his gaze. I did once, with Beckett, go to his mother's estate outside of Boston for a lunch, but it was just a big rambling house with an old widow in it.
Who is his mother?
Oh,
did you meet her?
Briefly, yeah. Her name was Katie, I believe. But let's see, what do I recall of the woman? She was obviously very religious. She had much in the way of crosses in her home, and she had that kind of religious conviction that you almost can't look at directly, if you know what I mean. It's once they begin talking, you find yourself averting your eyes or looking at any other thing than what they're saying. So, which was most of what the conversation at lunch was us dutifully attending to her sermon, as it were. As to the content of her sermon, it all seemed in line with every other Christian ceremony I've attended. There was nothing unusual in that regard. The relationship between Murrow and his mother seemed somewhat strained, I would say. Like he was perpetually a naughty boy and not living up to her expectations. I don't know if any of this is helpful, but...
If your boyfriend and his friends, this Porcellian Finals Club, were... who would generally be agreed to be the leader?
See, I had a tough time picking that up. I would say it seemed the most disagreement was between Beckett and William Murrow as to who was directing what was going to be done.
Locked horns, huh?
Yes.
Let's see.
But they also did have a deep bond beyond all the infighting, I guess. Everybody else was below in the pecking order, I would say. Although I find the ways men organize themselves to be strange to me.
Okay. So see if you can find out who that professor was that he had an argument with.
Yeah. Send the telegram to the usual place?
Yes, please. And I will tell you whatever answer I'm able to find. And if possible, I'll join you in this endeavor.
Well, I appreciate it, Dr. Andrews. You have no idea what it means to me when you can literally turn to no one else to describe what has happened. It gives me comfort to know there's one person out there who at least knows something. But have a good day. And she departs, leaving you with the bill.
Man. Kids. All right.
There's no such thing as Dutch in the 1920s. Sorry. So what would you? At the conclusion of that meeting, Dr. Andrews, what would you like to do next?
Yeah, so, that hasn't changed much as far as my primary objective. We were working on finding somebody else to take the fall for this murder.
Yeah, and it come down to Wallace Bowers, and you seem to have gotten approval.
Yeah.
By the Consortium. The only wrinkle that had turned up is that it appeared there were documents that would attest that he had been committed prior to the supposed murder date and time of Mr. Dooley. So if you like to stick with that individual, then that would have to be dealt with in some way.
Right. And I know we were going to talk with Whitmore about, sneaking into the place and altering records or whatever. And then we had received an offer to let Charlie go down for it, but for second degree and life in the mental hospital, right?
Right. That's a plea bargain that the prosecution is supposed to put forward here soon.
Yeah. Yeah. And I had been wondering if that might not actually be what ended up being the best for him in the long run, but now changed my mind. And so
it's kind of ironic that he's talking about changing his mind because Lance had been reconsidering, his position that absolutely not in taking the plea deal.
So I guess now I've just got to try and catch up with Whitmire and Monroe.
Okay.
Because they're going to have more knowledge than me, or at least Monroe's going to have more knowledge than me about Zagua and, right?
Right, yeah.
I mean, that's the sense I get. So I would try to meet up with them somehow. Send them a telegram, go to their hotel, whatever.
Right, yeah. I guess the first thing to do is always to check at the museum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where his help it can only mention that he had left with Mr. Whitmire like a little while ago. I'm not sure if you guys left any information as to where you could be found from that point.
I think we had decided that we were going to test the Dream Castle tobacco, and so I probably would have left a message with her on that we would be found at Mr. Whitmire's safe house or wherever he was staying at the time.
Okay, so yeah, then you get that information, and which just gives you an address somewhere in South Boston, and you take the local transportation there. And this address ends up being an unused factory of some kind.
Okay.
That's awaiting, to be leased. And you're standing outside the gate, sort of wondering where it's going to be. And you, give me a spot hidden roll.
Okay.
So yeah, you see a boy. In fact, you recognize him. You think his name was Ethan. He's sort of got half of his face peering around the corner of one of these buildings.
Yeah, this was one of the knights of...
Yeah, the Great Knights.
The Great Knights, yeah.
And he's looking at you, and you're looking at him, and it seems clear to both of you that you see each other, but for some reason he's staying hidden with half his face on the corner of this wall. He's not hailing you or anything like that. He's just watching you.
Ahoy there, young man. Come talk with me. I'm looking for my friends. Have you seen them?
So you hear a bird call echo across the abandoned factory site. And then he comes around the corner and up to the other side of that gate. He has a very suspicious look on his face when he looks you over.
Oh, come now. Surely you remember me. Dr. Andrews. We met at the vacant lot.
I do remember you.
Yes.
But what are you doing here?
Well, I've come to meet Jimmy and Lance. They're in here waiting for me.
They didn't say anything about that.
They're forgetful. Now, open the gate. Come on now.
Hold on a sec. I got to check with Bill.
I'll pull my shotgun. Just kidding.
So he runs off a ways, and then he comes back with Bill, the oldest of the three brothers.
Yeah.
And Bill's also has a suspicious look, and he said, now, Mr. Whitmire said that nobody would be here, and if they were here, that they shouldn't be.
Yes, but do you remember how when we met up, and then we were talking about the basement under the lot, and then Lance and I went down there, and when we came up, Whitmire just showed up out of the blue. This is the way our our friendship works. So they won't be disappointed to find me here. Now come, open this gate so I can go talk to them. For one thing, they mean to smoke Dream Castle tobacco in there, and I have the Dream Castle tobacco. So...
Really?
Yeah.
We thought that it was in my trunk. So what did we smoke then? Uh-oh.
He's like, well,
So is this what is the gate locked? Or?
yeah.
Okay.
He's like, I don't know. I feel like there's some token you could offer, a way of me knowing for sure who you are.
Yeah. I get where you're going there. And so I'll pull out $1. You know?
He's like, thanks, mister. And he opens the gate. He's like, so he's back here in the outbuilding. I guess they're taking a nap or something. You old folks are weird. So what's going on?
So I'll look at him and I'll say, you've made a huge mistake. I've come to kill them. And then you're next.
And then he turns into the Dark Hunter.
So yeah, his hand, you see him, he goes to his pocket and he just has like a regular old pocket knife that he pulls out and he's like fumbling at it.
Just kidding. And I'll ruffle his hair like you do to kids that annoys the heck out of them. You know?
Yeah, so he ducks his head away after a moment. He's like, don't do that. I have it styled how I want. And your hand comes away all greasy.
Greasy, yeah.
And
Get out of here, you greaser punk.
And so yeah, so they're back there in this little building. I hadn't heard anything from inside. We haven't seen anybody else but you.
All right, well, close the gate and nobody else should show up. And if they do, they shouldn't.
Now, do you mean nobody?
I mean
nobody?
With one exception. If you see a giant guy carrying a shotgun who can't talk, stay out of his way.
Okay, will do. All right. So yeah, they get back to their watch, and you, on your way to this outbuilding, you pass Simon, who's got a little hopscotch chalked out on the pavement. He's doing that. He doesn't even notice your passage.
Yeah, I'll hum the Pie Man song as I go by.
Yeah, and that gets him going on it. He wasn't currently doing it, but yeah, he starts on it, and Bill's like, thanks. And you go into the outbuilding, and you see Mr. Whitmire and Mr. Monroe sleeping there. So while you're looking at the sleeping forms of Mr. Monroe and Mr. Whitmire, will bounce back over to them in the dreamlands that they wander around in the city of Ulthar, standing before this great temple. You guys are looking around, wondering which of the petitioners will most likely answer any questions you pose. What do you favor, man or woman, Mr. Monroe?
I think I'd favor someone that looks like a common laborer of sorts.
Okay.
And that seems like just an average everyday person, not like robes or royalty or anything.
Someone
like
still wearing the clothes they might wear in the field.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you see what you assume to be a middle-aged farm wife who's come bearing a few standard sort of bits of produce. So she has some cuttings of wheat that she's waiting in line to offer that you approach.
Okay. I'll approach by saying, my good woman, we are pilgrims from a distant land, and we were wondering about this temple and this man you worship.
Oh, yes, this is Nosht, and this is the temple of the elder gods.
The temple of the elder gods. I'm afraid I'm a little unfamiliar with them.
Well, there are 7 in total, and there are shrines to each inside. Nosht is favored here because he's believed to watch over Ulthar.
And are all pilgrims welcome in the temple?
Of course.
Is an offering required, or?
Some just come to pray.
Okay. Are there priests in Nosht inside that may be able to answer questions that we have?
Yes.
Thank you very much, good woman. I appreciate your candor, and I wish you the best of luck in your day and your worship.
Thank you. And she offers you like a curtsy.
And I'll give a small bow. And
yeah, so you take a step back towards Whitmire.
Yeah, and I'll kind of look at him and say, temple's open to all. Apparently it's to the elder gods. It seems as if this noshed man that we met on our first arrival is one of these elder gods and is the protectorate of Ulthor.
Yeah, and there was nothing about Nosht or Common Thaw that would give you the thought of a god when you met them. They just look like ordinary aged men. Well, I mean, the circumstances, you might think they could be a deity, as they were in a cavern with a suspended flame in the center, column of flame.
Yeah.
But, yeah. So what is your guys' next move?
Well, should we enter the temple and see what information we can find out about these elder gods and this realm that we happen to be in?
Yeah, I think it would be a good starting point.
It may be nice to visit each of the 7 temples. She seemed to mention that each of the elder gods has some sort of a realm that he watches over, or at least that there are temples to each of them.
They all have shrines inside the temple.
Sorry.
Yeah.
They all have shrines inside. So perhaps we can find some information on each of them.
Okay. Yeah, let's head in.
Yeah, so this, when you guys walk in, it has hushed atmosphere like a library or a church for that matter. And there you see it's kind of arranged so that every one of these shrines has a roughly the same representation as far as space goes. But you have a few different figures here. You have one that you saw on the coin, Whitmire, so that's a figure emanating brilliant light. Another one depicts, and these are statues, by the way, it's these shrines, depicts a smiling man who's naked from the waist up and he's encircled by blazing flames. Another one is a man with jet black skin and silver pupilless eyes riding a lion. So these statues are painted to depict these colors. Yet another one depicts a gray-bearded and hoary man. There's something familiar to both of you about this figure, although you can't quite put your finger on it. And over there we have a figure with silver skin and coal-black hair holding a staff of lapis lazuli. That's actually differentiated in his stone statue. And
do we see Common Thaw in there as well?
No, you don't, actually.
Oh.
You see...
Maybe he has his own.
You see a statue of a tall, slender man with bone-white hair and skin clothed in a robe of black satin. And finally, you have a beautiful woman dressed in long flowing robes, wearing a Greek-style helmet and carrying a spear and shield. Now, you both may give me occult or archaeology, even anthropology would work, whichever of those skills you favor.
Said occult, anthropology, or what other one?
Archaeology.
They should have gone with the cult, but
is probably going to be my best option.
Yeah, I was going to fail that no matter what.
Yeah.
Well, Mr. Monroe, having looked at many different archaeological sites, that you can, even though they'll have different deities, you can sometimes pick up similarities between different groups, even though they never had contact with each other. Although you're having trouble doing so now, like, for example, some culture might worship a figure as the embodiment of truth or as like a fire god. You're having a difficult time determining which of these deities would represent those sorts of things. They are quite strange to you and your way of thinking.
Yeah, they don't kind of fit the elementalistic form of a pantheon.
Although you do wonder if these are sort of corrupted versions of, say, the Greek pantheon, or maybe the Greek pantheon are corrupted versions of...
Like the one with this spear and shield could be like Ares or something along those lines.
But then one of the other figures seems to have no bearing in Greek culture whatsoever, so it's very difficult for you to nail down.
Or perhaps even one of each of these gods represents a different, base deity from a different culture and something along those lines.
Right. So you see some priests attending to all of this stuff. They seem to be keeping incense lit at each of the shrines. But what most catches your eye is a man comes out of an adjacent room wearing like khaki pants and just a white linen shirt, and he has a trilby hat perched on top of his head. And he seems like shocked to see you guys, particularly Mr. Whitmire, because his dress is more in the style that you guys would wear in the 1920s, whereas you
I'm wearing
are an Egyptian poser.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's most shocked to see Whitmire. So you see that sort of verbal alarm, not like he's going to turn around and flee, but just like he wasn't expecting to see somebody who looked like Mr. Whitmire there. You see that as well, Mr. Whitmire. And he has a pencil. You can see it poking out from one of his ears, where it's tucked behind his ear.
Because I'm going to ask him if he is a friend of a friend. I know it's going to sound weird, but
yeah, he kind of gives a half smile and he says, "I suppose I am. Robert Ramsden is the name, and you are
James Whitmire." And I'll extend my hand. So happy to meet you.
So he shakes it, and there's something grounding about interacting with him. You know, like before your journey up to Ulthar, you guys, it was very hazy and dreamlike because there were things that were familiar yet strangely different. But here, this seems to be rooted in the reality that you guys are most familiar with. But yeah, he says, "Robert Ramsden is my name. How is our friend of a friend doing these days?"
Well, unfortunately, I found this on a tree outside of the enchanted wood, and I'll pull out that letter and give it to him.
Oh, yeah, Nicholas. He came through a while back, but he left a few months ago.
Oh, well, that's kind of a relief because I found what looked like his kit there as well, and I didn't know if the enchanted woods had gotten the better of him or not. What can you tell me about this place? As I know that it's a dream, but I mean, I'm not sure exactly what we're supposed to be doing here.
Well, can only tell you what I think about this place. The people who are from here, well, they have very much the viewpoint you would have if somebody showed up and started asking them basic questions about, say, like the laws of physics or why that animal looks that way or this and that. You know, they're just politely confused. But my theory is, well, today I take Plato's view on knowledge, and that is that all knowledge is somehow remembered. Do you follow me, Mr. Whitmire?
Yes.
So what I think, and this is completely baseless and speculative, is that we're each a sensor somehow outside of a collective unconscious that we occasionally receive signals. It's purely hypothetical. These people can't describe it to me. They can just give me their myths and legends, which don't do well to my mind in answering anything. But in any case, I just think this because I think the nature of receiving ideas is rather odd. Wouldn't you agree? I will sit there banging away at my typewriter and then, mostly churning out inadequate descriptions of things, and then bang, an idea will pop into my head. And it doesn't feel like it came from within. It feels like it came from without. And this, I think, could be the place where that comes from. This is a place where myth seems to walk.
Now, that name had been kind of tugging at my memory. Is that the name of the author that wrote the Women from Mars, the 50-foot Women from Mars?
No, but you do know it was in the note written by Rupert Merriweather that fell out of the Liber Ivanus. Okay. This is apparently the author who had found the gate to deeper slumber and planned to kill himself and go there for all time.
Okay. So I will ask him if he had abandoned the waking world in favor of this one, or if he continues to exist there as well.
No, I fear that I'm quite dead.
And
I guess. I mean, I don't know. Am I publishing books still?
I
He
haven't.
lists off a few titles that I suppose with an extreme education role you might have read them.
I'll give it a shot, though, with how I'm rolling. Nope. Once again, not even close. So, no, I'm apparently extremely distracted by this world.
Well, the titles, they do evoke the kind of, pulp titles that you might see in the pulp magazines. So
okay,
that might make sense why you're not familiar with it. Could be too lowbrow for your self-image.
Not occult enough.
Right, yeah. So, yeah.
Or is he saying, or I'm going to ask him, are you saying that if you die, you come here?
Well, no, I don't think so at all. I think most people that die, if you're following my theory, just return to an unconscious state back into the ether.
Then what did you do to bind yourself here?
Well, I imagine something similar as to what you did. I made a special potion that I drank, and then I stabbed myself with a dagger in the heart.
I'm afraid we haven't done anything quite as severe as that.
Sleep. Yeah.
We are temporary explorers, as it were. Have
goodness.
found a way through the gate of sleep that allows us passage back.
Well, now I feel quite terrible for my wife that I left a widow.
Well, if you would like, I suppose I could drop a message to her.
No, I don't. I don't think you should trouble her with that. That would probably just complicate matters.
Well,
but when I asked about my friend of a friend of a friend, I was asking about Mr. Merriweather, of course.
yes,
He's doing well.
I actually recently found a message to you that he had left in a book that had been found at the university. A rather dangerous tome.
Yes, he had found me years back, but he ran into some trouble here, and I have not seen him since.
What kind of trouble did he run into here?
I'm not entirely certain. He went to Mount Lirion, that great peak you can see when you walk out here, and he never returned. That too, I understand that's where Nicholas left to.
So when was the last time we'd seen Merriweather in the waking world?
June 12th,
And it is the 16th right now?
17th.
17th? Okay. I'll ask him if he knows. Do you know, can you count the passage of time here as opposed to the normal world or waking world?
I don't think they have a correlation to one another.
Of
Of course, I can't say for certain.
About
he never went back.
about 4 days ago was the last time that we saw him in the waking world. He was going he was traveling, is what we were told. But I guess if he came here, who knows if he's still here or not.
I can't say for certain. I know there are rumors of other travelers that come from the Enchanted Wood who do not take appropriate caution, and they die here, as it appears, we died back where we came from. And
What about
not seen again?
Father, is he here?
I'm not certain who you're referring to.
He's referring to a being that may be considered a god. That what was the term that they called him? The father of worms, or he'd been mentioned in several occult traditions that we had associated with this area. And Mr. Whitmire said he found a large chamber or hill or some sort that had binding runes on them in Aklo that we believe we had seen on the tomb in the waking world that had bound this ancient being on Earth.
I do know the area of which you speak. I do not know of any god by which you speak. I do know that the area is binding something, or it's a ward, perhaps between a different place. I'm not certain. They, much like back on Earth, I guess, the gods here don't seem to be here. Their stories say that they left at some distant time in the past. Of course, they say on Mount Lirion the gods sometimes return to play during the night before the dawn.
Well, on our way in, we met Nosht.
Yes, but I'm not certain if he's
Common thought.
a god.
True. When I spoke to a woman outside, she had mentioned that there were 7 deities, and I had somewhat expected to see the other man that we had met on our entrance, Common Thaw, and I see him nowhere among the pantheon in his temple.
Well, according to the myth, they see Common Thaw and Nosh as the same person, or a kind of father and son situation. One's the avatar, one's the god, but the avatar's missing as well, apparently. Yeah, it's difficult for my mind to track. I grew up in a good Christian upbringing, so to get outside of that is quite a leap of imagination. One in which my imagination does not often run. I'm more concerned with dark places and secret cults that daring men must enter and dispense with,
You're a man after my own heart. And
So,
to
who
that
are
matter,
the gods here?
Oh, well, yeah, you can see he points to the figure emanating brilliant light, and he says, this is Ariel. He is the embodiment of truth, according to the people. The smiling man naked from the waist up, he says, this is Karakal. I don't know what they worship him for. He's kind of like a sun god, a fire god. They give thanks for warmth. To the jet black skin and silver pupilless eyes riding the lion, he says, this is Noth or Thoth, and I don't quite understand his place in the pantheon. The gray-bearded man is Nodens. The man with silver skin and the staff of lapis lazuli is Tamash. The man with bone-white hair and a robe of black satin is Zokalar. I think he's the dichotomy of life and death for the people in Ulthar. He represents both. And then the beautiful woman here is Nitsi Kambal. She's a war god, near as I can tell. Of course, these are all comparisons, and they don't actually get to the depth of the relationship that the people in Ulthar and elsewhere have with these. But they left to unknown Kadath in times past and have not returned, except, as they say, perhaps to play on Mount Lyrian.
Do you know why Mr. Merriweather went to that peak?
He said he had been getting visions when he left those years ago about some impending cataclysm, but I'm afraid he was, reserved, as if you guys truly know him, he has a tendency to be. He wouldn't divulge more than that.
In an infuriating fashion, yes.
Do you know why he sent Nicholas then?
I don't know if he sent Nicholas up here. I hadn't seen Merriweather since before Nicholas appeared. Nicholas just left one morning.
Do you know why he was here, though?
No, he didn't seem to understand how he had come to be here. He was confused. His arrival came out of a moment of violence, and he appeared to have some block on remembering his time before his arrival here.
Okay.
Robert, one question. Have you, in your time here, heard of a place called Irem, or perhaps a sorcerer by the name of Kolthal Gimin?
I have heard of Irem. It's supposed to be somewhere back in the Middle East, in the Empty Quarter, but it's a fabled city, thought not to exist. I came about it in a very mundane way, just researching my next novel. I thought about setting it as the set piece for my finale, but the details of its existence were scarce, and I went in a different direction.
And you've had no hinting of it here in the dream world?
No, I have not. Although they do have, libraries here, if one's so inclined.
Truly?
Yes. Scattered around the city, there are quite a few. But I'm actually going to pause us here so we can go back to Dr. Andrews. So yeah, you are standing at these two sleeping individuals. Dr. Andrews, what did you want to do?
All right. Well, just because I can't help myself, I'll, take their pulse and make sure that they're
alive
and, sleeping peacefully.
Yes, they appear to be in good health.
How have they set? What does this room look like?
So it's very sparsely decorated. It's empty aside from he has a few containers with water and some non-perishable foodstuffs, and then they are resting on two cots.
Oh, okay.
Knowing Whitmire, he has made allusions to laying low on occasion, and this looks like one of those places, just a little bolt hole where he can go where nobody knows where he might be.
Right, and this is like an old abandoned factory, you said?
Yeah, and they're out in an outbuilding here.
So, okay, an outbuilding, and is there other rooms? Or is this
no, it's just one room. It's really like a overgrown shed in a way.
Like a big shed. All right, so I take their vitals, right, and they seem to be sleeping healthfully and peacefully.
Yes.
And what's the temperature like in here?
It's pretty warm.
Okay.
Because there's no air conditioning, but it's not unforgivable, Okay. If you took a nap in here, you'd probably sleep for 5 hours. That's the level of
I'd
warm.
wake up and wish you were dead.
Right.
Like, why do I still live?
But you can see that Mr. Monroe had a book next to him by Sigmund Freud on dreams and their interpretation. And Mr. Whitmire had tucked away an odd book where the cover is actually torn off, but you can see on the binding it says Nameless Cults.
Okay.
And evidence that they had recently smoked Dreamcastle tobacco.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll go find. Now, Bill was the oldest kid. That was his name?
Yes.
I'll go find him and ask him how long they've been in there.
Yeah, I think it's been no more than 30 minutes.
Okay. All right. So if that's the case, they just went to sleep, and the dream castle, shows they did it on purpose because they're delving into that, which I wanted to do myself, but I don't want to wake them up.
Okay.
It's not an emergency that we wake them up. So I'll just
Take a couple hits and join us.
no, because he wouldn't know that that's possible or likely, right?
Yeah.
And there might be something about you having to sleep at the same time, So I'll just go sit down in there and keep watch, and I'll read. I'll keep reading that book, the one I was reading, the Book of Abramelin.
Oh, okay.
I'll just pull that out of my jacket and read
start
that.
reading.
Wait for them to wake up. Because what time is it?
So now it'd probably be like 2-ish.
In the
maybe.
afternoon?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's too early to go to bed anyway. So
Okay. Well, on that note, you did stay up all night, I could say.
Yeah, you did watch over me.
Watching
after.
over
that's
Monroe.
right. I did, yeah.
And when you settle down to read, you do start nodding off a little bit, especially being in the warm shed.
Yeah, but I'll actually be aware of that. So I'll situate myself in a way such that if I do nod off, I'll not wake up with like a kink in my neck or, my arm falling off or whatever. But yeah.
Well, I'll say that you will nod off unless you want to take some specific action to stay awake.
No.
Okay.
No.
All right. Well, as you nod off, go ahead and give me a power roll.
Oh, I've never done that before. So
It's in your characteristics.
I have failed.
Okay.
Do you have Whisper on?
Yes.
I do? Oh, 2GM. Yeah.
Okay.
I
I was wondering why.
do. Sorry about that. Yeah, I got a 70 versus a 60. So
Fuck.
can you luck a power roll?
Yeah.
I'll do it. I'll
Okay.
spend 10 power or lucks on it.
All right. So you find yourself in a particularly vivid dream. You do have, when you get there, you do have some memories of other dreams, but you are standing out in a field. How well traveled is Dr. Andrews in the United States?
Well, probably more than the average citizen because,
Because I know you have some connection to Montana. Is that right?
yeah, yeah, where did I put it? Yeah, so born in Helena, Montana, and then medical school in Boston, and then Peru, and probably did a lot of traveling to around New England to different seminars and things like that. Also.
Right.
So,
Yeah, so you've
not
taken
bad.
those trains cross country from the East Coast back. So you have a good idea that you're somewhere in the Midwest, although not specifically where. You just get that sense about it. You've at least seen it out of your train window as you traveled cross country.
Mm-hmm.
And ahead of you, about 50 yards ahead of you, is a metal windmill that's sort of turning and squealing lazily in the light wind that blows across this plain. But beyond that, you can see a mound that looks just like a hill, except that you have heard your companions talk about it as a burial mound, probably. I think there's been some discussion about this phenomenon.
Yeah, I have a tendency to ramble
Yeah.
without caring who's listening.
Yeah,
So some of those snippets of Monroe's
yeah,
lecturing come back.
yeah. I've heard about this dream a lot, actually.
So you know that if you go inside
Nicholas and
that
his
mound,
Yeah.
Yeah.
there is apparently some entry into a subterranean place. If you recall it correctly, there was some indication that it was a place that serpent folk, at least as that's how they appear in their depictions on the wall, fled from early humans.
Yeah.
So yes, that's where you are. Because of your successful power roll, you have a lucid sense of this dream. It feels just like being awake.
All right. And I'm like outside of the mound?
You're about 100 yards distant from it.
Yeah, I'll walk towards it.
Okay. So yeah, you stand at the base, and there you see a low opening that leads in and down into the mound. Although it's dark inside, you can't see anything from the outside. And you do see a big radio tower even further distant than that. The land kind of gives way into a valley's not quite right, but it does drop away, say like 100 feet into a basin. And it's within this basin that you see this tall radio tower.
And that's away from the burial mound?
Yeah. It's far distant. You would think miles. You can just see it because the terrain's so open out here.
Yeah, but that really is going to pique my interest with us speaking with Murrow back it through the radio. Right?
Yeah.
Like that's on my mind. So I'll just like I'll look up and see it and then turn, without even a hesitation, I'll just turn towards it and head that way.
Okay, so it's quite a walk. Like I said, it's miles. So it's, you're pushing beyond an hour. Although you don't seem to flag in the same way as you do in the real world. But you do become kind of mentally tired. Maybe it's the lack of diversity in the terrain. But as you approach this radio tower, you see there's a building of modern construction at its base that is fenced in. You'd say it couldn't have been constructed much beyond 5 years. Within the last 5 years is where you place it. It has that kind of appearance to it. There's not much art in its construction. It seems to be purely for some function. But it's fenced in, and you don't see an opening from the angle you're at. Perhaps on the other side there might be a gate, although it wouldn't be impossible to scale the fence.
And you said it doesn't have a gate?
Not from your side of it.
All right. So
the building might be blocking the gate.
And how tall is this building?
20 feet. You think it's just one level?
One level building? Okay.
Yeah. And then the radio tower stands on your side of it, which has another gate surrounding it. And at the base, because this radio tower is so tall, it's probably 30 feet across at its supports. Okay. And you've become aware of that sense of electricity, somewhere in your chest or maybe your ears. You're not quite sure how you pick up on it, but the air just is slightly vibrating, it seems like.
Mm-hmm. All right. All right. So I'll just start making a circuit around the fence of the building and see if there's a gate on some side of it.
Yeah, there is. When you come around, you do see there's a wide gate, big enough that vehicles could get in, and it is secured with a sturdy padlock style lock.
Okay.
Although as you've made this circuit, you don't seem to see anybody on the grounds itself. Although you do see there is a truck parked underneath just a structure, just like a little garage, I suppose, right? It's parked in there.
Awning or something.
Yeah.
All right. So what kind of details can I make out of the truck? Is it a familiar truck? Does it have a license plate?
It's a newer model. It does have a license plate.
And do I see evidence on the ground that vehicles do use this?
Yeah, you see a well-worn, I suppose, path for where the truck tires would come out of this awning and through the gate onto wherever it goes. And you can see that the building itself is windowless.
Yeah, I was going to
ask that. Although there are
next.
A few single door entries.
Mm-hmm.
There's one just opposite the gate on the interior, and then there was one on the back side near the radio tower.
All right, so I'll stand in front of this gate, and it's locked with a sturdy padlock and like a chain?
Right, yeah.
Or something. I'll shout, I'll call out, hello.
All right.
Hello, in the building.
So yeah, your voice echoes out across the installation, and you listen for it to fade to silence. The echo disperses, but nobody seems to respond to it.
But I hear an echo?
Right, yeah.
Yeah, so that's okay. All right, so
out of all the times that everyone else has been in this dream, no one thought to go that direction.
I think only Mr. Mueller clambered to or was it you who clambered to the top and saw the radio tower? One of you guys did in a past episode. Of course, that could have been like 15 episodes ago.
I don't know if it was me or if it was Johan.
I think it might have been Johan.
Yeah.
But there is an echo, right, which the terrain doesn't seem to support, which reminds you, again, that you're in a dream, which you didn't really lose. You know, I said you're aware that you're in a dream of some kind.
Okay. So, yeah, once I've given it a reasonable amount of time and no one answers me, then I'll look to climbing the fence.
Okay.
What does it have, like barbed wire on the top? Or
no, there's nothing like that. It's just tall, you know, like maybe 12 feet.
So first, before I start climbing though, I'll see if the chain is wrapped loosely enough that I can.
Okay. Yeah. Give me a luck roll.
Pull the gate open enough to squeeze through.
So it's secured enough that not even a person could make their way through the gap. Maybe a child, but you're just too big to get through it. All
right. No help for it, but climb. So I'll spit on my palms and.
It's pretty easy. It might have been put up just to keep animals from wandering onto the grounds or something like that. But there are plenty of handholds and footholds and ways to scale it. So I'll just have you make a climb check to see if you fumble it in some fashion. And you don't. So yeah, you get over and now you're on the interior of these grounds and you look around and nothing has changed from when you were on the outside of the fence. But directly ahead of you, some 40 feet, would be one of the doors that enter into the installation.
Okay, well, first I want to go check that truck out.
Okay.
I'm going to walk over there, look in the windows and see if I can get a sense. Sometimes you can tell if a vehicle's been parked in one place for a really long time.
It doesn't have the sense of a derelict. In fact, you can see the key is just dangling in there where it goes to set up so you can work the crank and get it started.
Mm-hmm.
It has a kind of a canopy over the bed, so you can't see what's in the back there. It does appear to have a sense of being well used, as you see the depression of where somebody might sit in the seat.
Yeah.
And there's a few little bits of debris, not debris, but, there'll be like a coffee thermos in there, a metal coffee thermos and things of that nature.
Okay. So I'll look in there and, once I've got the sense, that it's a used vehicle, I'll keep an eye out, but I'll head to the door.
Okay.
And try it.
So it swings open and it's a heavy metal door, although you're not certain which metal it is, but maybe that's just your ignorance. But inside, it's all very modern looking. You can see you immediately enter a hallway that has a series of doors on either side. And at the end, there is yet another door. Your guess would be the door that exits near the radio tower on the back side of the building.
Okay. Well, if there's a single vehicle and I don't see signs of any other people, I'm assuming there's just going to be like one person in here, and the gate was locked, so I don't want to surprise anybody. And so I'll call out, hello, and I'll start, closest door, I'll knock on it, and
Yeah, you don't get a response. In fact, you have some sort of sense that the place is empty.
Okay.
Because who else would be in your dream with you?
Right.
But you do hear, after your voice fades again, you hear some odd noises, clicks and a soft humming coming from the door that you tried. And when you open it, you see, not unlike the radio room that you saw in the University of Massachusetts, where it has all this gear set up on tables, and you have like a microphone sat before a chair, and there are bits of paper filed here and there. But it's way more sophisticated than the one you saw there. There's blinking lights on the consoles, and it's like the radios that you saw, the ones you see in here would be like 10 years beyond what they had in that room. But let's pause on you for a moment, and we'll return back to Mr. Whitmire and Mr. Monroe.
All right.
So yeah, I believe you guys were asking about Nicholas.
Yeah. So I guess there are kind of two things on my mind. One is like, where are these libraries that I can look into and second is, where's the path that leads to the, what is it called? The mountain or whatever that Mr. Merriweather went to.
Oh, okay.
I swear I wrote it down.
Mount Lyrian.
There it is. Yep.
As my request is, if he has any information on any additional information on manipulating this dream world.
Okay. Yeah, we can start with Whitmire's question then. Yes, I had quite the ability to do that when I first got here, but it seems to have faded with my time spent here. So when he describes it, like how he would do it, he kind of illuminates something else for you, Whitmire. You get the sense that the shotgun you created will only basically last for the duration of this journey here, and that the next time you come, it will be gone. But he said he had actually, when he first got here, manifested his wife, but permanently, although she has since gone on to do other things. There was something weird about it. It was, we don't realize how much of what we remember about a person is just us, and it's not actually the true person. I realized after a few short weeks of trying to live as I did back in my hometown with my wife that it just it wasn't the same. I hadn't created my wife. I'd created some version of her. It was quite unsettling in a way. I mean, she wasn't violent or anything like that. It was just not the person I knew. But after my attempt to do that, because you see, I had to do it in my dreams. That's the only sort of flaw in my theory, Mr. Monroe, is I still dream here, so I don't have an answer as to what, if this place is the place of dreams. It appears not to be. But anyhow, I created her over many nights of dreaming, and when I came out of that dream and she was here, my ability to alter the dream had gone. I felt that I had been diminished in some way after that attempt permanently. But she's still here. I'm sure she's traveled off to parts unknown. I'm sure she is still well.
You created life, and for what it's worth here, and that's got to take something out of you. Although, and I want to give him a small piece of that mana and see if that helps, makes him, like, does he notice any effect from it?
He looks delighted to see it. He's like, oh, it's been so long since I've seen any of this, but I think you should keep it, Mr. Whitmire. I don't think it would help me.
Oh, all right. Do you know any way, like, when we enter this place, do you know any way to control where we enter at? So I always seem to start in the Enchanted Woods in a different location every time.
Yes, I think, this place plays on the subconscious, so sometimes our fears of an area are the strongest thing that we feel, and then that's where you might appear. But if you focus your mind enough, you can determine where you appear in this place, or at least that's what Mr. Merriweather claimed. It was more difficult than just appearing here, but it could be done.
Okay. Those are the only questions I had for now.
And Mr. Monroe, if you follow me, we can look at the library here in the temple. They have quite a few books. I think you'll find it quite fascinating when we walk in there.
I'm sure I will. Please lead the way.
All right, so he takes you into an adjoining room, and then it is sort of breathtaking the moment you walk in there, because this interior space could not exist from what you saw of the exterior of the building.
We got a TARDIS effect going.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and you could see it's mostly vertical, and that there are many levels with those very steep spiraling staircases up to the next ones. And he says they have quite a few books here.
I think when we first walk in, like, I'll stop walking forward and do that thing where he continues on and doesn't realize that I've just stopped and I'm staring.
So time spent here can be used to earn a check in your dream lore skill. They have, as you start looking down the rows just on this level, they have, books on different topics. Some are on the gods, some are on the flora and fauna of different places, or the geography. As as they know it. Although you see when you look at this section on this atlas section, they have revised versions of it as though there's not any permanent state to the area. You see a book that catches your attention called The Myth of Cradle, but then you move on to other things.
Myth of Cradle?
Yeah.
Nice.
And give me a luck roll.
Yeah, I have not gotten anything today.
Yeah, it's a problem of so much information that you don't even know where to look and focus for one moment. You know, you'd need
a
strong
amount of
tea
time.
and and some
Can
time.
I try and find a book too? I'm not looking for anything in particular. Just
go ahead
something.
and or give me a luck roll.
Can I read the Book of Cradle to find out what happens in the next season?
You could try.
It's still being written.
So that'd be kind of interesting. You open it up and you see like at the end the script's still flowing. There's just so much here, and the titles are so strange, and they refer to things that normally aren't in your human experience. So nothing jumps out at you as holding any attachment to the experience that you've had in the recent week. So, I mean, you just randomly pick a book and it would go into some topic, which I kind of have to arbitrate at this point and be like, well, you guys can get the skill increase. And then when it becomes important, then we can go into details, as I did not write a full library of books for the Dreamland. So, but yeah, they're just, for anybody that has an appreciation of books, it's a good spot to be. And one could spend multiple lifetimes in this spot. And he's like, Robert claps you on the back and he's like, it's wonderful, isn't it?
It truly is magnificent.
I was delighted to find they had a copy of one of my books in here, and I tried to track down where they had gotten it from, but they didn't know. The current caretakers didn't have that information. But it's very strange.
You had been searching for the Liber of Honus in the waking world before your transition to this one. Have you sought out any of the books that you had been seeking in the waking world here?
Well, I did for a little while, but I found that my interests, the course of my life was altered. If I had continued doing that, it would have just been because it was something that I had remembered and not a true interest. And, I, in all humility, see myself as an artist, and I have to follow my interests. And after a few weeks here, I found it pulled in every direction but what those old mortal concerns were. I do not think that they have a copy of the Liber Honus here.
Well, I was less considering that, but there are several tomes and rare books and volumes that I'm curious if I may have better luck finding them in one of these libraries than I do in the real world. But that may be for another time.
Well, Nicholas spent a lot of time here prior to his departure.
Did Mr. Merriweather also spend time here as well?
Yes.
I don't suppose you could lead us to the books or the sections that they had been reading prior to their leaving for Mount Lyrian?
I think that I could.
Very good. That would be most helpful.
So he takes you up these narrow stairwells to some of the different levels, and there ends up being 7 levels in all. And up at the top level, he says this is where Mr. Merriweather spent most of his time when he was here, particularly with this book, and he pulls out a copy of the Narcotic Manuscripts.
That was actually one of the ones that I was specifically thinking of as far as like tomes in the real world that I couldn't get my hands on.
Yes, it was, as I said, he's as cryptic as ever, even when he was here, and he only spoke of some looming threat that this might shed some light on. He spoke of a time would pass on Earth when the stars were right, and there would be a cataclysm, at least from humanity's point of view. I don't know if he was seeking to stop that or usher it forth. He seemed equally excited and horrified.
Well, I suppose that is something that we share in common, as we have found that some forces in the waking world are carrying out some sort of a plan that we are yet unaware of the scope of it, but it could be very the very same cataclysm that Mr. Merriweather has sought to either participate in or halt. I suppose that Mr. Merriweather himself would have to speak to which path he has chosen.
If he ever would.
Very true.
And Mr. Whitmire, I can speak a little bit about the myth surrounding Mount Lyrian, but I want to show you an image first. And he goes somewhere else on the shelf, and he just pulls out, it looks like a coffee table art book, for that matter. It just has a bunch of different images, and it seems to be drawings from around like Ulthar. And he goes to a section of Mount Lyrian, and there you'll have like a landscape of its foothills and the supposed city that's somewhere on its slope. And he turns to a page, and it's a drawing of a figure that I'll need an education roll from you.
Nice.
Hard success.
So it looks like Neanderthal from human, the Neanderthal man. It looks exactly like that. And Robert's sort of smiling, and he's like, now what does this look like to you?
It looks like, caveman. So you're saying that this is where man comes from? Or...
Well, no, I'm not saying that at all. I just found it interesting that, something from our history on Earth would appear here. Now, the legend goes that these people, which people in Ulthar call Yugorothians, lived on Mount Lyrian, and they apparently tried to make a pact with some dark god. I'm not certain on the details on that one, but
Zagua.
I don't know if that was the name. I'm sorry.
Sorry.
But the Six Kingdoms came together and put together an army and threw back this group of Yugorothians and their dark god, and they have not been seen since. But they supposedly had a great city in Mount Lyrian called Yugoroth. So my thought was, we're not sure what happens to our human our ancestors. Like, did Neanderthal just die off? Or did they move in whole to the Dreamlands? That was just a thought I had once I saw their picture. Or is this just a coincidence?
Well, it's wholly possible that they did come from this place with what you're telling me. As who knows what the passage of time was, but if they were never defeated and fully defeated, completely extinct, what if they somehow found a way with the help of that dark god to get somehow moved to our world?
I mean, it could be possible. I don't know. The legends just say that they performed human sacrifices in their city, which is built entirely to honor this god. I do.
And you said that there was a roughly a map that kind of depicted a city up there somewhere.
It's a drawing of the city as seen from the foothills, so it's not very descriptive. It kind of looks almost like a watercolor painting. It's more representative. It's trying to catch perhaps the feeling that one gets if they stand there and they gaze upon it, rather than an accurate.
Mainly, I want to keep. I want to try and memorize the images behind the city, right? Like any mountains, hills, rock formations, anything like that. If there's anything like that there,
yeah,
that way I could try and keep it in mind for later.
Yeah, you can definitely try to commit that to memory. He snaps his fingers, Robert does, and he says, the thing in the yellow mask is what the legends said the god's name was. Does that ring a bell for you guys?
That sounds like Father. The yellow mask.
Thing in the yellow mask. Does it have eyes? Do you have a picture? Anything?
Not that I've come across of, and certainly not in this book.
Can I describe that mask that we found in Peru and ask him if that sounds... And does that sound familiar?
I mean, that sounds like a yellow mask, but I don't know if that's this god. I mean, this is ancient history. It's so old that it's now myth to the people of Ulthar, so who knows how long ago this had happened, but that's what they called him in the myths. So let's pause on you guys for a minute, head back to Dr. Andrews as he's sort of walking down the hallways of this installation, And each of these rooms you peer into have that, they're very similar to the first one in the sense that you are looking at technology that you don't quite understand, but you feel that it's more than just your ignorance of current technology. The construction, the lines are all different than what you saw in that basement in the radio room at the university.
Mm-hmm.
There's an elegance to them that doesn't look necessarily like it was made or came from a human mind. You're not quite sure how you make that connection. It's like the buttons and things are what's the word? They're constructed in a way to accommodate a different physiology than mere fingers or thumbs.
Uh-huh. Okay.
And one of the doors you peek into is a stairwell down into a basement from which you hear a thrumming, a sort of repeating pattern of 1, 2, 3, and then that fourth one's held for a few seconds longer, and you get the smell of earth emanating from the basement.
All right, so that's to the basement. And is that every other door I've opened, all of them?
Pretty much, yeah.
And I'm looking through these, and they all have the radio equipment that looks odd to me, more advanced or for a different physiology.
It's all electrical equipment.
Yeah.
It seems to run on some form of electricity.
Some form of electricity. Now, does any of it look distinctive from any of the other? Like, do I see one that looks like it was made for, Martians and one that looks like it was made for Venusians?
No, they all appear to be accommodating towards this inhuman physiology. The first room was the most familiar because you saw something that looked like the radio room, but the subsequent rooms are only similar in the sense that they have these these electrical constructs that do something. You're not sure. You see a piece of parchment or paper sticking out of an opening on one of the devices.
Yeah, let me look at that.
There's a script you don't understand for one, but it does use where numbers appear, it is the Arabic numeral system. So you see like 1s and 2s and 4s and all that sort of stuff, but everything around it's too confusing to make sense of it, other than it seems to be like a measurement or a chart of some kind. They're like technical readouts in a way.
Mm-hmm. So looking at like the equipment in there, do I see buttons or switches or screens, anything like I don't know.
You don't see screens, but
screens
you do see
exist yet?
No, I don't believe so.
All right. So dials.
Yeah, all that sort of stuff. It's just
I don't understand what it's for.
Right. There'll be like it looks like a dial and that it turns, but there's an oddness to it. Like if you just brush it with your thumb and your forefinger, it doesn't easily grip onto it. Like we might put a little bit of ridging around a dial or something, but they have more like slots.
Uh-huh. Okay. All right. Well, before I go down, and so I've tried all the doors and I haven't found any people. Before I go down, well, no, I'll just go down.
Okay.
Down into the basement. Well, did I see anything anywhere that looked like it could be used as a weapon?
Yeah.
Like a crowbar? Something?
Yep. Yeah. In fact, we'll say you saw a crowbar back in the truck. You don't see a machete, though.
Yeah, I'll grab that then, and then I'll head down to the basement.
Okay. So you come down these steps, and there's this electrical lighting at first, but then the bulbs, there stops being bulbs hanging out of the ceiling, and instead there's a strange sort of glow that begins to emanate from the walls as you traverse down this, and then it flattens out, and you realize that you're up on a long-running balcony or something that overlooks a grand procession hall, and on one end of it is a columned opening to who knows where, and on the other end looks kind of like a honeycomb with the closest you can think of is a ladder in a library that has multiple levels. It's on wheels and sort of mounted to the wall, and you can move it laterally across it. And each one of these honeycombs looks like the openings between like a bulkhead on a ship, right? Where you have that thing that you turn and then a latch opens. So there's just rows of these, one on top of another. And as you're watching that, you see it begin to spin as though one of these is going to open.
All right. So I'm like on a balcony.
Yeah.
And I'm looking down, and that's that's generally what I see is like some sort of, honeycomb structure, with each one having like a bulkhead door.
Right.
And what's above me?
There's just an arched ceiling.
Okay, an arched ceiling. Is there like a railing on this balcony?
Yeah.
Well, I'll duck down.
Okay.
And keep an eye on that one that's spinning.
Okay. So you duck down and you're looking through the railing, which are actually a lot like the toad statuette you got there. So they're supporting the upper rail. There's just rows of them. Does that make sense? Right.
Yeah.
And this door opens and you see a man wearing a fedora, although with a broader brim, and a suit sort of step out. And he looks over at the ladder and it seems to propel itself towards him. And he starts coming down the ladder until he gets to the base. And behind him comes another person, somebody you've never met before in your life. He's dressed like a doctor, however, and he clambers down that ladder. And the man in the fedora reaches in his pocket and throws some rose petals or some sort of flower petals on the ground. And the man kneels down and he starts dutifully putting them into his mouth. Fedora man goes forward a few steps, does the same thing. Now you can see from the opposite end, 3 more men wearing these suits and fedoras start to walk down this procession hall until they meet with this man who's tossing out the flowers, which the doctor-looking fellow is eating dutifully. And he seems to be in some sort of fugue state, like only preoccupied with eating the flower petals, but then he goes on a little ways and eats some more. And they're slowly making their way down this procession hallway. But you hear that thrumming. It's even louder before. It seems to be picking up, almost has a choral pitch to it. And you think you can make out words. Give me a listen roll.
Okay. Hard success.
Yeah, so that 4-note sound that you've been hearing, that thrumming, you pick up some syllables out of it. So you have like, sa, tha, q, wa. And it's held, right? Sa, tha, q, wa. And that's picking up as they near the column entry at the far end.
Okay.
So those other 3 stand at different points behind this doctor, as the one who came out of the bulkhead door is throwing petals along the path that the doctor's eating.
Wait, they what?
He's throwing like rose petals out of his pocket, and the doctor will reach down and eat them.
Right.
And then he goes forward a few steps and throws more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But are they moving towards
the columned entry?
The column? Okay.
The doctor, as he reaches the closest point to you, seems to be in a kind of trance.
Yeah. Then I haven't seen these people before?
No, although you've heard their descriptions.
Yeah. Is one of these like, where have I heard the descriptions?
From Mueller and Monroe.
And probably Whitmire too.
Yeah, that's right, because he told you about the meeting he had in the hotel lobby to try to retrieve Orrin B. Eddy's soul fetter.
This is like Consortium people. Yeah.
They don't all look the same, although there is some similarity that you can't quite put your finger on beyond their dress.
There's a picture.
Something in their movements. Actually, give me a spot hidden roll.
Nice.
Success.
So there's a flickering light that's coming from somewhere below you, and the shadows of this procession dance on the far wall sometimes, and you get this nice moment where the shadows cast by the 4 Consortium members, make like an image on the wall, and you realize that the image from these shadows is not the image of a human person, but something else entirely, something with long drooping arms and triangular heads and tails, something that you didn't think was on this earth. Give me a sanity roll.
Yeah, so these have the bad shadows.
Yeah, so you, with that successful sanity roll, you can wave it away as the oddities of a dreamlike state, although it obviously recalls to you Charlie Murphy's description of a man whose shadow was all wrong, and what these guys, your companions, have said to you.
Yeah, they had tails, and what else did you say about them?
Like triangular heads, longer arms than humans have generally.
Okay. All right. Okay. So, like, are they, how many levels below me are they?
Just one, although it is like a 15-foot drop.
Yeah. And there's like an entryway? How far into that can I see what they're heading towards?
Almost not at all. It
Okay.
seems as though the darkness in there begins artificially at the opening. Like
Okay.
the light from this lichen that grows on the walls does not seem to penetrate it.
All right. But they're headed that direction?
Yes. Although you do see that this railing you're on continues down along this procession hall, and there does seem to be an exit elsewhere.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, but I'll just hold still for now and see if they move on
Yeah.
so I don't get caught.
Yeah, they do. It doesn't take much longer than 10 minutes for them to traverse the entirety of the hallway, and then they disappear into that columned opening at the end, and the chanting reaches a crescendo and then stops.
Okay. Yeah, so when they move down that columned area, did I hear the opening of a door or
No.
nothing? Okay. All right. So then the chanting stops, and I go level above them, but I do see that there's it looks like there's some exit up ahead of me.
Yeah, up on the railing, yeah.
Yeah. Now on this section where I am, do I have access to any of the bulkhead doors?
You could, yeah.
Are there any along the route that I'm going?
Yeah, if you go back the way you came down, right where that stairwell came out onto the railing, that would be right by the wall with these honeycombed bulkhead doors. There are two that you could reach as they're in a row there. And by your count, by the number of rows, you just doing some quick multiplication, there are 64 different doorways at the end here.
All right. And is there any sort of iconography or writing or anything like that to set either any of these doors apart from the others?
Yeah, there is, but unfortunately it's in a similar script as you saw in that printout. You can't make heads or tails of it. I should actually allow a 1% chance. So you can roll a D100, and if you critical it, then by some luck you would be able to decipher it. But that is simply not the case.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
although you can tell on each door there's differences between the symbols on there, etched into the metal.
Okay. Well, what have I to lose? Only my soul and my sanity. I'll go.
You're in a dream. It can't hurt you.
Yeah. I'll go to one of the doors I can reach.
Okay.
Right at the beginning of the rail and see if I can spin that wheel.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just a little precarious to get it open and to move into it. So I'll just need a successful dexterity roll, which you perform. Yeah. So the interior beyond this bulkhead door is a little odd. It is restrictive, although it appears wooden on the inside. And there's an opening, we'll say 4 feet within this wooden interior. It kind of looks like a cupboard door, but from the inside.
Okay. And that's how long is it?
4 feet from the bulkhead entry to the opposite, the exit.
Yeah. And what kind of door does that look like?
It looks like you were inside a cupboard.
Yeah.
Like a wooden cupboard.
So I'll go peek.
Okay.
Slowly peek. What's on the other side of this door here?
I'm just hoping that he falls out of the sarcophagus in my museum.
Yeah, let's do a luck roll from you.
Okay. Man, I'm not lucky with my luck rolls.
Okay. Yeah, so you push it open. You feel something sort of tap into, as I said, when you were walking, you'd begin to flag a little bit mentally. That seems to worsen once you open the door, and you feel exhausted just looking out and peeking. But what you see, it's difficult to tell at first, but it comes together. It just looks like a shop because there's a bunch of shoes, some being displayed for sale and some in the process of being created. So it looks like a cobbler shop.
Do I hear anything?
No, there's...
Smell
you look
anything?
out, and you recognize it immediately as Boston, but there's no traffic on the road when there should be. You're not particularly sure where in Boston you are, but it's a pretty big road, and there's no traffic going up and down the street.
Okay. All right. And it gives me a weird feeling like I suddenly am getting super tired.
Well, yeah, when you peeked out the door, basically it drains some magic points from you.
Yeah. Well, Yeah, it's too much. There's too many. Like I'll go back and head towards that exit
Okay.
that I had seen. Because if I go through this, then why not go through any of the 64 others? And who knows, So best to figure out as much as I can about the first area before I start.
Yeah, so that experience is worth a D4 sand loss. No sand roll in this case. What you realize is that your mind is somewhat dependent that the laws of physics should work the way that you expect them to work.
Mm-hmm.
So going through a small opening from a possession hall into a cobbler's shop in Boston really fundamentally undermines...
Not in my wheelhouse. Not the sort of thing I'm willing
your expectations. So, yeah, it's just a D4 sanity loss.
Lost 2 points of sanity.
Okay. So yeah, you make your way back onto the railing. You get back on the railing, give me a listen roll or spot hidden.
Like my choice?
Mm-hmm.
Hard success.
Okay, so as you're straightening up from clambering back over this railing from the opening, you see a shape out of the corner of your eye approaching you rapidly, and it resolves itself to be, well, we'll have to find out what that is next time. All right, guys, thanks for playing.
Yeah, thank you, Travis.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Travis.
Thanks, man.
There's a couple things I wanted to get to you guys before I forget them for all time. So you guys, with the exception of Dr. Andrews, get... This has been a Death Watch production. Thank you for listening.